There it is. All right, done. All right, Timmy, tell us how the breath work. How's it go? How's it work? How'd you get started?
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, my name's Timmy. I'm a breathwork practitioner, trained in XPT, performance breath coaching, a soma instructor, conscious connected breathing, and I'm in training to become a trauma release practitioner. So it's a lot more deep work with like PTSD and stuff like that. And my partner and Jackie and we both started Create Flow. We started doing breath work. Well, I started in 2013. Um, I started doing Wim Hof and cold immersion. Basically kicked off because I had a serious and traumatic base jumping accident and was in a really bad place and needed something to sort of pull me out of that place, and was looking for anything that would do that. Sort of found Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, and read that, and that just sort of opened me up to this spiritual awakening, I guess you could call it. And then through the breath, like found my breath and started to have deep breath journeys, and kind of got better, and just sort of left the breath work for a couple of years. And in the last 2 years, started again with just still on this self-discovery journey, and just sort of came into plant medicine, and through that found my breath. And I guess the catalyst for it was I had another injury in 2016. I broke my back, my heel, and a few other things. And
Was that base jumping?
yeah, that was base jumping.
Oh,
So yeah, what was interesting was when I got back into the sport a few months later, um, under canopy, I was like, as I was flying, I was having these like moments of reliving past trauma. And I found that really interesting, and it sort of made me sort of dive into that, and like, what was that? What was going on subconsciously that I had no control over? And it sort of led me back into plant medicine and the breath work. And through the breath work, I was able to become my own medicine, with just within me. And especially through the trauma release style of things, I went in wanting to heal this physical trauma, and just it became an unfolding of emotional trauma, and then the physical, and then I was just able to grow through that. And we started this breath work it changed our lives, and we want to help people change their lives to become their own healer. So that's the idea of it, to get people to be more conscious and connected with themselves. And then the flow on from that is then they become more conscious and connected with the world around them. So we all just live a better life.
yeah, all right. So what method of breathing techniques do you use?
So the main one that we use is the BBTRS, which we currently are still in training for. And that's a conscious connected breath. So open mouth breath. It's just a continuous loop, and it allows you to access your limbic part of the brain, so your emotional brain, and it helps you can potentially, release suppressed emotions and just get more in touch with your body. It allows you to open up and explore your body. We also do performance coaching. So I've been coaching with Troy, actually.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, so that's been awesome, because basically when COVID hit, we weren't able to work with people, and that's all we'd been doing is in person. So we just sort of pivoted and wanted to keep offering, keep the dream alive. And so we went online and got into the science of the breath, and then that was just opened up a whole new realm for us, which was awesome. And we also do soma, which is like a deep meditative breath that it's just in through the nose and out through the mouth with certain types of music. So the music's designed to alter your brain waves, and so you can go from like the beta, which is the normal waking state, to theta, which is like the deep meditative, like hypnotic awareness. And we use like NLP, so like language programming and things like that. So yeah, awesome process.
So what? It's almost, that sounded like a little bit of almost like hypnosis in a way.
It is. It's sort of, he does use a few techniques like that, but it's not so much hypnosis as in more like positive affirmations and stuff like that. Just getting you to tune into your own body and just raising your state, like altering your consciousness, and then after you've done that, living in that state, just becoming more aware and grateful for your life.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I guess that's pretty cool. Actually, I didn't know too much about the soma. I guess what's really helped, I guess your space is James Nesser coming on the Joe Rogan podcast and going through the book that he wrote. What was it called? Breath, I think.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about, I can't remember the other one, but I remember him talking a lot about Kriya breathwork, or Kriya, some sort of Kriya technique, and another one that was more of a like psychedelic experience he was talking a lot about. And he was telling the benefits of nasal breathing as compared to open mouth. Do you think that have you looked into like the benefits or the contrast between open mouth and nasal?
Yeah, definitely, man. That was a big thing that came up with the performance coaching. Patrick McEwen is, I don't know if you've heard of him, he runs Oxygen Advantage, and he was the breath coach advisor for XPT, where I did my training, and wrote up the program for them. So he's all about, he's been studying it for like 20 years, the benefits of nose breathing and how good it is, and how we should all just be doing it. And like, as you probably heard from that podcast, you know, it's, our noses are designed to be breathing through. And it's just, especially like right now, you know, it's such a more balanced breath, and it just lets you live a more balanced life. Like our breath dictates our whole physiology, our whole psyche. It affects everything. It's the anchor point to who we are and how we function in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Can
what,
you say more on the on the breath and how it actually interacts with us, and when you're able to regulate it, like what actually goes on that causes these different things to happen?
Yeah, so we're basically tapping into our nervous system. So we have our autonomic nervous system, which controls heart rate, all the things like autonomic, basically automatic is a good way to, an easy way to remember it. And that's what's I found so cool about the breath. It's like, for some reason, out of all of those things that we have no control over, we've been given the breath to be able to control. It's the only thing that we can actually change. And, you know, we can change our heart rate, change our temperature, all these things that people thought were impossible. It's all possible with the breath. It just needs to be relearned and tapped back into. And so the nervous system, back to that, when we're breathing like short, shallow breaths, we're usually in a sympathetic state, which is our fight or flight. So that's like our fear response. And then when we're breathing slow, smooth, especially longer exhales, that's our parasympathetic. So our sort of rest and digest state. And that's, yeah, basically with the styles of breathing you use, just depends what sort of you're looking to gain or to get from breathing in that certain way.
I did hear a little bit about that when you were saying, so what was the first one when we do short and shallow? What does that put you in?
Yeah, so that's that's sympathetic.
Sympathetic.
So yeah, if you think about it, when you get scared, the first thing you do is usually you breathe into your chest, and it's really short and it's through the mouth, and then when you relax, it's
Yeah.
you can feel it. Even just a slow breath, like just a slow exhale for 7 seconds, you can already feel yourself start to calm down.
Yeah, it's almost like you melt into your own body a bit.
Yeah. Our breath is our own medicine cabinet. You know, there's so many ways to tap into it. It's incredible.
It's amazing. Like, and seeing it get more and more popular is even better, because that means that there's going to be more and more people having access to this. And which one was it that we did?
So we did soma. So that,
Wow,
yeah. So that was the first one was 2-4 breathing, and the second and then the hold, which is like, it's called intermittent hypoxia, and it basically drops down your your blood oxygen levels down to about 80%, and that's where the magic happens. There's research shown that it can actually encourage like stem cell growth, and it's a great time for like neuroplasticity, where you can, you know, do those positive affirmations, and your brainwaves have changed, and you're open to change and things like that. And then the second one was the 4-4 breath, which is like a flow sort of rhythmic breathing, just to get you back into that calm state and just nice and balanced in your body.
That was an amazing experience. And it's funny the way that of course, when I saw that this is something you were doing, I was really happy and I was really keen to try it out, because I myself had just done a little bit of, I had come across the idea that breathing through the nose was better for you. And that was just through training in martial arts. And then from there, I thought, let me get in contact with Tim and do a session. But the reason it was so interesting, and I haven't chatted about it too much, was there was a lot of things going on externally, which is, I guess, the case with everyone at certain points in life. But everyone has their certain ways of dealing with certain things. So for myself, I had those mechanisms, like positive mechanisms that I would use. Some of them would be communicating or journaling, meditating, but I hadn't used breath in that way, and I didn't expect to, really, because when we spoke, it was, and you asked me what I was aiming to do, it was just about, I guess, performance. And for me, in my head, I was thinking mixed martial arts. Let me just develop some strong routines for breathing. And then when I had that like really interesting experience, which I didn't expect, where there was like, I had certain emotions that I didn't expect it all to surface. And then I was wondering why my eyes were wet, and then realized that I was crying. It really opened my eyes up to that side of things. And the reason I decided to share that is because I think a lot of people might hear about the breath and only think about it in that one type of way, about performance enhancing and it's better oxygen uptake because of what goes on in the nose. But I can see again also on that podcast that Joe Rogan himself was a bit hesitant towards the idea of the breath being able to go beyond these things. And yeah, it was really interesting. It was good.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, bro. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it is a massive point, and a valid point, that the breath is just so, you know, it's not common knowledge of what's achievable through it. And I just think we're just so limitless when it comes to what we're capable of in terms of like being a human, and you know, especially in the society we live in, it's just designed to, you know, sort of suppress and hold on to everything. And that's part of, especially the trauma release training I do. It's about opening up your body and de-armoring this conditioning and letting go, and also about finishing these fight or flight cycles that we hold on to in our bodies. You know, we start to, you know, sort of tighten up and everything gets solid and rigid. And then when you start to breathe, and then in a certain way and with the right guidance, you can, and in a gentle way, just release these emotions and just start to open up. And it starts to change the way you view the world and you view yourself and how you think about yourself. It's just a really beautiful process. And it was awesome, brother. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. That was, like I said, perfect timing.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
That's cool. I didn't expect that. But so was that just from the breathing technique, or was that because of the mix of the soma? So you were doing the affirmations and obviously you were guiding him somehow, or how did it work?
Yeah, it's definitely from guidance, but it's it's just a perfect example of how we are our own healers, and it all comes from inside. And when we take the time to tune into our bodies and tune into our breath and just connect back with ourselves and allow ourselves to feel, and just allow ourselves to process whatever needs to be processed. In the animal world, this is just done automatically. If there's a perfect example, we got shown in my training where this polar bear, they tranquilize this polar bear to do some tests on it. You can look it up on YouTube, and it's sort of, they have they do the tests, and then after it sort of comes to, and it shakes off, and then it just strolls off, and it's just gone through that process. Like it's shaken off the trauma that it just went through and processed what it needed to process. Whereas we don't shake off, we just hold on to. So it's just about finishing that cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually. Just finishing the cycle. Because how many guys, and we spoke about this about yesterday. We had a few guys on from the Empower Club talking a bit about mental health awareness, especially for males. And I think that's probably the best way to put it, is that we don't shake these things off. You know, we just hold on to them, and we try and bury them deeper and deeper until we start acting out in passive aggressive ways, or even self-destructive ways. And then we're not too sure why. And I think that's the key right there, is just finishing the cycle of whatever the emotion was,
100%, bro. And it's all, we can, through the energy of our breath, we can awaken ourselves. It's beautiful. And it's so simple. I think we always think it has to be some amazing experience or thing, or like, even like my big revelation was, I thought plant medicine would be the answer, and then it turned out I was the answer. That's what it's all about. That's the message that we're trying to spread and share with people, and just empower people to live their best life, and just to breathe through everything. And it's not that it's going to be the answer, and you've always got to go through your own process, and whatever you need to do at the time is perfect. But it really is simple, just to breathe.
So when you're talking about plant medicine, are you saying like psychedelics, or?
Yeah. So
using psychedelics to unpack certain sorts of trauma.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I just wanted more self-inquiry, and I just had bigger questions around my mind and the ego and the universe, and just a natural progression. I was lucky enough to have some friends that introduced me to some really amazing circles, and got to explore that, and still do.
That's good. I'm glad that you brought that up, actually, because I think that it's become quite a hot topic, especially the last few years, that people would love to have a crack and try these things and go down these paths to really understand themselves. But maybe you might be able to speak on this a bit better. But when you go down a path like that, especially for plant medicine and these different psychedelics, it can often be quite confronting. And I'm not too sure if most people really know what they're going to be up against if they dive into it like that. What are some safer methods and better ways of going about it do you recommend for someone that wants to try this?
I'd recommend beginning with the breath, honestly.
Yeah.
I had one of the biggest psychedelic experiences I've ever had in my life through breathing. You can also try shamanic breathing, holotropic breathing, things like that, that'll get you into an extremely similar state. And this is where you're breathing as hard as you can in whatever style that you want, that feels right for you, for 2 to 3 hours at a time. And you'll end up in these states that are just incredible, and you can really unpack a lot in that. But it's always should be done with proper guidance, because you can really activate the nervous system and do damage to the nervous system unnecessarily. So definitely recommend guidance. I did a lot myself without guidance, and when I did the training, I was like, oh man, like I would have just been doing some damage that I thought was amazing, and was having these awesome experiences. But now that I know more, because like obviously if you don't know, you don't know, but I still really enjoyed that process. I wouldn't change it, but I definitely recommend getting some guidance with it for sure.
That's cool that you say that, because when James Nestor and Joe Rogan were talking about it, Ben Greenfield, the biohacker.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
He was saying he said that exact same thing. That he did holotropic breathing for 3 hours, and he said it was the most powerful psychedelic experience he went down. And I'm like, whoa, it's that powerful. But 3 hours of, I mean, I guess, but 3 hours of breathing, as hard as you can, that's how does that even work? How do you breathe that hard for 3 hours?
It's interesting what happens. You start, it's usually, so for the shamanic style, you basically guided that, for 20 minutes, you give it everything you can for 20 minutes, and that's what you'll get out of the journey. And then whatever happens after that, you basically just start to follow your breath and follow your body. And if you guide it correctly, and especially if you've had some experience with psychedelics as well, I feel, this is just speaking from my own experience, you're able to surrender to the process in a way that is like really, really surrendering, like moving expression, like vocal expression, allowing yourself just to feel everything that comes up and just to fully let that go. And you start to, your breath just takes you where you need to go. And when you come up against fear or come up against a block, you just keep breathing into that and just keep, if it feels right, just keep pushing into that. And especially if you've got someone who's holding the space really well, they'll be able to guide you to go deeper and to explore. And then you just release that. And it's not so much about having a big expressive release. If that's what you need, that's perfect. But it's just about being gentle with yourself and letting yourself unpack whatever needs to be unpacked.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to some like basic tips on breathing that anyone could take away, I guess, to just improve their day to day, because I think, of course, like you said, it's something that will happen without you having to focus on it. But are there ways, or are there any methods that people can implement, or just some general advice in regards to the breath and a better way to breathe?
Yeah, for sure, man. It's really, really simple stuff. Longer exhales is the key. If you're feeling anxious, a 7-second exhale is just going to drop you back into that parasympathetic state for at least 3 minutes. So 4 seconds in, 7 seconds out for 3 minutes will drop you back into that parasympathetic state. Also box breathing as well. Navy SEALs use that. It's just like 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4, and just repeat that. It's all really simple stuff. And that's why I think it's really surprising that none of this is taught to us when we're younger, that it's not in schools, something so simple, like such an easy technique that can really, really benefit you for your life. Yeah.
Man, there are so many things, when I think about it, there are so many things I'm constantly thinking about schooling and the education system, and I'm thinking, how much is there that's good, but how much is missing? It's like, not just this, there are so many classes, man. If I could pop up a school, like a STEM school, it'd just have all these different classes.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
Yeah.
Man, interesting.
It's interesting, when so just bring it back to the player one mentality for a second. In the player one sort of world and game, in this book that we've read that has touched on it, they say that when you are designing a character to go into the game, that expensive traits to buy for your character are hard to come by, and they're very rare. So for example, something like that, implementing the focus and the habit of breath work to relieve anxiety throughout your life would be considered an expensive luxury to buy, right? To buy and put into my character. And I think that's because it's just such a powerful tool, And if you get someone if you think about a lazy, lethargic person that doesn't have any self-care, it's a very poor character. There's not much money or there's not much investment in that character, right? And then if you get a really expensive one, a really luxurious, they have these very healthy habits that they maintain. Because I don't think that, I'm sure it's once you develop the habit of it, it's going to be very easy and very to implement into your life. But someone that's not really caring about themselves, a very poor mindset, then it's not something that they do. So I think that something like this, if we had this at a younger age, we'd be just way happier, live a much better life. You know what I mean? Have that more high end sort of lifestyle if we are happier.
Absolutely, man. And it's just about learning to regulate ourselves. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. We're not taught how to regulate our feelings, emotions. We're not that, we aren't our emotions, that we don't have to live them. We can just feel them. And like, you're so right. It would just be amazing if we were all taught this, like this, in this perfect world, if we were just taught how to self-regulate. So simple.
Another good thing with that, with like the whole player one mindset, is that the same character that starts the game isn't the same character that finishes the game. And a great way that we can describe that, I guess, is when Josh and I are always looking back at our own lives, and you might be able to do the same right now, and you can see the pathway that you went down, or whatever journey you went down, and we always say to ourselves, well, before the game, which is where a lot of people, I guess, like they bring teams together to develop a certain character, and sometimes they'll say, look, maybe having this character interact with this person or go down this pathway will give them certain experiences that may not be as pleasant at the time, but will lead them to other things that are much better for its progression. So that's another awesome point with the play one mentality.
Yeah, because I mean, just talking to you over this one podcast or listening to James Nestor talk about it, you know, guys like you that are coming out now, especially, it's just, you guys are going to be doing some really great things. And you're going to have so many more positive, and like you were mentioning earlier, these positive flow-on effects, you know, like each one tell one, you know, like when me and Sam talk about it, then someone else tries it and someone else, and just this flow-on effect from something so simple, but for some reason it's only now just getting talked about, you know. I think it's really great that you guys are pretty much at the forefront of it, really.
Yeah, thanks, bro. I don't know if that forefront, but I feel like it's the same for you guys. You know, I think especially right now, we all have a part to play, and we just need to play that part well. That's basically it. Like, we've all just got to do what we can to raise the vibration, to raise consciousness and awareness, in whatever way that is. You know, and sometimes it's not going to be easy. Sometimes you might offend people, but you've just got to speak your truth and do your thing.
That's awesome.
That's
exactly like how you put that rang a bell.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? You know, it's crazy because even just me and Sam, we were talking about this when we were in the first ISO, I think, and we we're really into running, and we were logging our runs on Strava. And I remember you, Sam, were just doing every few runs, just nose breathing. And I remember every time you did just nose breathing, you would put your caption as, you know, I'm just trying this lap or this 3K nose breathing. I can't explain the benefits, but I just know it's good. And now, you know, like you got these guys coming on, and now the science is actually showing. And I remember the same thing. I just started yoga for BJJ, and I'm doing his older programs. And this is a few years ago when you recorded it. And he says the same thing. He's like, I can't explain to you why, but just breathe through the nose. And they're talking about the benefits of having this very conscious breath work, not just trying to, you know, hold on to the pose and breathe really hard because it's a hard pose to hold, but to be aware of your breath, to slow it down. And now you've got the science to back it up. So it's perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's all about intuition as well. You know, that's what we need to get back to, is more of a feeling, like just feel and listen to our bodies and just connect back to our bodies. They're so intelligent, you know, and we have like emotional intelligence as well. And just to really tune into that and live from that place rather than from the mind so much. I don't think there always has to be science. If it feels right and it's not harming anyone, then it's probably a good thing, you know?
Yeah. And although this is having like a resurgence now, it's cool looking at practices like yoga and whatnot. These things and focusing on the breath has been around for so long. So it always makes me wonder what kind of civilizations existed back then, where, you know, people knew all sorts of things like this. It's so basic, but damn,
yeah, man, I get so into that. Like, I always wonder what humans were capable of thousands and thousands of years ago that we have no idea about, especially in terms of breathing. I mean, if you just think about, like, even, you know, the Om, like the Om, that sound is like, they've figured that out. And even with the breath, like, they just knew the perfect amount to breathe. That was like the perfect balance for a human being. And it's like, how did they have the technology? And I think it was all just from feel and being connected to nature. You know, and that's what we want to do, is connect people back to themselves and then connect back to nature and just all be in harmony.
So on to the first, I guess, one of those interesting questions just popped into my head. If you could time travel back into any previous civilization, which one would be at the top of your list?
Oh man, I'd have to say, off the top of my head, the first thing that came would be the Tibetans, like ancient Tibet. Yeah, the ancient wisdom that they have, and their relationship with death, and they basically live their lives to prepare for death in a good way. And I just found that, yeah, there's a really good book, The Tibetan Way of Living and Dying. I definitely recommend reading that. It's quite a bit of a hard read sometimes. You can get a bit like confusing for myself anyway. But yeah, I'd say that for sure. They just were onto it. They just knew about these things and just passed on that through storytelling and through face to face. There was nothing like written down. It was just all passed on. Yeah.
Troy's going to love that you said that. Troy's obsessed with his old school history and he loves Tibet. He's got a big artwork on his wall in his lounge room of I can't remember what it's called, but you know that mountain that was like the flat top, and that's where they said that they were living.
Yeah, I don't know the name of it. No,
I can't remember what it's called, but he's got that, and he reckons he just in his lounge room after he does all his sauna and breath work, he just stares at that and wonders what it was like back then. He'd love that you just brought up the Tibetan times.
That's awesome. So good. Yeah, it's incredible.
I did watch that 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt, and they were talking about exactly what you just said, having this, because in the movie, they get raided a few times in their village, and obviously it's very traumatic, but the young monk, I can't remember what his name is, what they call him, but he's just a young kid that's just so wise because he just sees beyond, this whole conflict and just says that it's okay, it's okay that, death's not the end, it's just the beginning, and it's going to be okay that we go through this. And I'm like, man, how do imagine having that sort of peace of mind throughout your life? Man, we get worked up over the tiniest things, for like, if whatever it happens throughout my life, and then it's like the ultimate what if what happens when we die, then to be okay with that, you'd be okay with everything throughout your life,
I think we should be okay with it. Like it's going to happen, you need to make your peace with it, and you'll be able to live a better life with that. It's especially in the Western world, and this is just my own opinion, but I think death should be celebrated. It's definitely a time for mourning and grieving. It's sad, but it's also a part of life, and there's no way to change that. So we need to embrace it.
I can really get around that. And it's cool seeing different cultures already do. Many different cultures already do. And myself, my dad is from Uganda. When I went over there, there is a lot of mourning, but that's just an initial phase. And then after that, I wouldn't say festivities, but there's something of that type occurring. And it's cool because you just reflect on, in that community, you would reflect on the person's life in only a positive way. And then, yeah, it's good. Death should not be something to be scared of at all. Like, I guess it can be easy to say, but well and truly, I'll even put it out, I don't really think I would be too worried about that at this stage. It's hard to explain how or why, but I remember making that connection, probably having spoken to my dad, because we chat a lot about this. And I remember him always saying, he's like, look, I'd rather you, not in a bad way, I'd rather you die than get really badly injured, and maybe like not be able to walk. And as a kid, I'd be like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Now I'm like I really understand that. It's not really, and when you let it go, I think it helps you, and you can see it in certain individuals to live life a little bit differently.
Yeah, there's nothing to lose, and I think it's really cool that your dad had that chat with you. I think that the parents should be having that chat and not living under some illusion that it's not going to end, and like what it is, and not that anyone understands. And I think that's why life's so exciting, is because no one knows, and you can constantly change your beliefs and ideas, and it's like how good's that? You can learn something new and get to change the way you think about your life.
Yeah, that's the best part. Like each moment, that's why I love Mondays, not from like a hyper productive type of way. I just love, it's like how I love the mornings, because it's like even if the previous day wasn't like top notch or whatever had happened, it's like there's a new opportunity to not just try things differently. You can think differently. You can learn things. Like each day, each moment, an opportunity.
Yeah, bro. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so simple, isn't it? Because I mean, I think I've only been really hyperactive about doing that. Maybe probably this year, really, where whatever it is, if I like the thing, I buy the thing, or if I want to try that, I try it, and in just a very unapologetic way and nothing harmful, but just actually doing it and it's like, hang on, have I been shortchanging myself my whole life by not just jumping in and trying and accepting that I can literally do anything if I try it? You know what I mean? Instead of just thinking like I'm not capable, or yeah, that'd be a really healthy habit to do, to practice breath work, but I don't have the time or whatever. I mean, you're gonna really, really boost your own productivity in your own life and your own happiness just by adopting one simple habit that you try. I mean, there's nothing that I think that, and we always talk about this anyway, Sam, that if any human has ever done it, then we can do it too. We're no different. There's absolutely no different. It's just a choice that you act on.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. I agree 100%.
Yeah, well, you're a good example of that, because I mean, you've had a pretty interesting life yourself. I mean, when you first came to Limitless, which is how we met, and we were training jits, I was like, hang on, this guy's different. Like, he had a weird strength about him. You couldn't just sub him like any other white belt. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I'm finding out that you're base jumping and you're traveling all over. I'm like, whoa, this guy's like really living.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, man. I'm pretty grateful for it all. Yeah, I've really enjoyed my life so far. I've like had ups and downs, you know. Went through some pretty severe depression when I was younger, and like suicidal ideations from the age of 12, and was lucky I had a good support base around me. But just in what you guys were saying then about trying everything, you know, that's something I always remember my dad saying is try everything. And so that's kind of always stuck with me to just give it all a go and just enjoy life. And it's all just the process of living, isn't it? To learn and to work through fear and discomfort and just try and enjoy it the best way you can.
Try everything. That's a damn good one. So if you look at yourself as a character in a game just for a moment, and you think back and you say, all right, what quality do I have, or what things that I have that I think is a superpower? For example, what you just mentioned, the mindset of, you know what, try anything. That could be it. That could be something else. What thing would you say that your character has that really helped him get through everything in the journey so far, in the journey of life so far?
I'd say it would be that, bro. I'd say I've really, there's a lot of things that I've done where I honestly haven't cared what people have thought, or have just really just allowed myself to do whatever it is I want to do, whether it's, you know, from like the skydiving, base jumping sense to, you know, starting this breathwork company, to anything like that. Like I've you know, and it's been hard work for sure, but I'd say that was it, man. Just to try everything and just to learn. I've always enjoyed being the beginner, and, you know, like the eternal white belt.
Yeah.
All you Jits fans out there, it's it, man. Like I just love, and I don't mind looking stupid learning something. Yeah. Like I really don't, and mostly I do look stupid when I'm learning.
So can you imagine if you let that stop you? Like how easy it is to just let an opinion stop you, or something, or looking silly should be the last thing that should stop you. That's just, there's nothing to it. Looking silly is just a thing, and what it offers you is so much more. You know, the growth, the ability, that all happens in that little phase of looking silly. You should look at it as like this is the thing I really like. You embrace it. I'm about to learn something new, about to look silly for a little bit, but hey, it's going to give me something here.
Yeah, 100%. I just had a beautiful experience the other day with someone in the cold immersion and breath work, and she stepped into the ice, and she's always not done things through fear, And then she was scared to get into the water and scared to get into the cold. And she got in the cold and had a full emotional release. And she just said this was deeper than just being in pain. She's like, this is something that I've just unlocked in my life through being uncomfortable. She's just realized and had this revelation that through her life, she's stepped away from things in fear, and she's not going to do that anymore. You know, it's what it's all about. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's rewarding. As well with that, my auntie, she's been involved in like social work since I can remember. And I guess that probably stemmed through her own personal traumas growing up, and, you know, she overcame them, and now she puts it onto others and tries to help. But she always says that she has to try and because she gets all sorts of kids from all sorts of homes, and really pretty terrible families. And she always says that every case that she deals with and she opens up and reads, that she has to be very careful not to wear any of their emotional baggage. And especially, I guess what I'm asking is, especially with you going into the personal, you know, the traumatic sort of breath work and going and touching through that with someone, do you find it hard to see it happen, you know, time and time again, and do you ever carry any of their trauma that you unlock?
Yeah, so that's what the trauma release training that I did is really good in the way that they train us and explain that about they call it resonance, and it's about creating space between the person breathing and yourself, and you as holding space, and not to get involved in that process, and just to hold the space. And it's also about, it's definitely taxing energetically, and it's just about having tools to deal with that afterwards. And it's like anything, it's a skill that you get better at. At the start, I feel I was probably definitely taking it on, and now as I've you know, sort of growing as a practitioner, I'm much better at just being able to hold the space and not needing to do so many of those practices after a session. But it's all about preparing yourself before and after a session, making sure that you're ready and you're in a good mindset to hold that space. That's
so important. I'm really glad that you brought that up. And someone actually reminded me, I think it was Romy, my girlfriend. She reminded me yesterday, I don't know where she heard it, but she says she loves a good rant, you know, loves to tell me about her day, and that's good. But, you know, every now and then it'll happen, and, you know, you've got to sort of monitor the other person as well. And lately we've been doing this thing where anytime that either of us wants to rant about whatever it is, just to ask them first, like, hey, are you in a good headspace for me to just unload something at the moment? You know, and it's like, yeah, that's good, because, you know, there's no point in me just rambling and telling you how bad my day was, and I haven't even checked on if you're ready to handle something like that, especially with someone that's not trained in this resonance, you know. So it can be pretty damaging to just unload all your problems onto someone that's probably dealing with their own stuff as well.
100%, man. It's so good that you said that, because I do that with Jackie as well. Like, we make sure that we're good to unload, and I think it's really important in relationships, even with friends, because we can become like dependent or codependent on people, and we can, you know, like trauma bond almost with. That's how we interact, is by complaining and ranting to each other, and it becomes this really sort of unhealthy thing where that's how you're connecting with other people. So, like, you should always first, or not always, but it's good to like sort of look into yourself and like, what's going on here? Do I need to vent? Is this something I can sort of, you know, not figure out, but just sort of process on my own? Or is it good that I do need to talk about this and get it out there and process it? Like, it's just that balancing act, isn't it? Like, but no, that's really awesome, man. And I think it's definitely an important part of a relationship for sure.
Yeah, that's valuable, one gem out there for sure for people that are in relationships.
Yeah, it's too often. You hear it all the time when you hear just two people they're not even talking to each other. They're just explaining their problems, and the other one saying, yeah, well, this happened and this and this. And then if you sit by as a bystander and listen in, you're like, what are you doing to each other? This is not healthy at all for either of you. and you're going to feel worse after it. You're just going to be so hyper. And I can't remember that term that you said, but I'd imagine that you'd be even more in that fear, or what is it? Flight or fight.
Fight or
And
flight,
having that real tense sort of, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. I'm glad that you brought that up.
That's
Resonance. I'm gonna write that down.
All right, let's see if there's a particular question here. So,
oh yeah, we've got a little list. We went through Tim Ferriss. He's been a good inspiration for the podcast and many other things. He's been like the human guinea pig, sort of like us three, I guess. We're young guinea pigs. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
And he's got this little handbook of, you know, top performing questions to ask through, to sort of go a bit deeper and just a bit unusual questions, I guess. But it's crazy looking at these 11 questions here. A lot of them are already perfect in the ways that you've answered them just through talking.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I was reading through, I was like, yeah, good.
Yeah. Because a lot of it's like a bit of performance stuff and dealing with emotions. And I guess that's sort of what the whole podcast has been about, really. Because this is professional and, you know, social and personal all in one. This is like a perfect podcast, really.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed talking with you boys and just like where you guys are at and what you're doing is, I just think it's so valuable and needed. And it's like so nice that I know you're not that much younger, but just that the younger generation is taking it up. There's a few guys up on the coast here that are doing similar work, like a lot of men's groups and stuff. There's one guy I know, Darren, who has the Brotherhood up here, and he's like 23 years old and just so switched on and just really like the same thing you guys are doing, just trying to bring value to people's lives. It's awesome.
That's awesome. A big part of it is like the people we interact with, like the people like yourself that we're lucky to have come across in life. I think about it all the time, and it's like everyone, of course, your vibe attracts your tribe, but at certain points it's going to be different because your vibe will always change. But what I've found is the people that you've had some sort of connection with, like Josh said, there's a flow-on effect. There's like a ripple effect, and every time you drop one of those gems, or someone maybe hears you speak on this or hears the conversation we've had, that adds to that ripple effect. You know, that's a real powerful thing. That makes this really enjoyable because we come in and we know, hey, at the start we're just gonna chat and have a great conversation, but we know it's contributing to something.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that's like even our self-healing, you know, the more we work on ourselves, that has a greater impact than we could ever imagine. And that ripple effect is huge from your own self-work and self-healing. And then after doing that, then trying to share it, you know, that's,
Yeah, it's the whole, you can't pour from an empty cup sort of metaphor, you know, you got to make sure your own cup's full first.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect, man. I think that's a perfect podcast. I'm stoked, dude. I'm really glad that we had you on.
Awesome. I'm stoked to be on. Thanks. Thanks for letting me pop the podcast cherry.
Yeah, well, you're first.
Yeah.
No, that was awesome, man. We'd be really glad to see you once Melbourne calms down a bit and we can come up. Or you can come back down or wherever, man. That'd be really good.
Yeah. When it all opens back up, me and Jackie would love to come down and obviously visit the family and friends first, but hold some breath work as well. And
yeah. Troy was saying that. I think that's just before he did his first session with you. He's like, man, I got to get Timmy down here to not even just to Limitless, but to so many other different jiu-jitsu gyms. I mean, you know yourself. I mean, the jiu-jitsu community is it's different. It's just you always hear it a lot, you know, that jiu-jitsu is not just a sport, but it's for real, man. That like you'll find the most open-minded sort of people ever. And I think that this whole breathwork culture can really help a lot of gyms throughout Australia and the world.
Yeah, definitely, man. The jiu-jitsu community is an awesome community. Yeah.
All right. Beautiful, man. It was good to have you on.
Sweet. Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Legend.
Ciao.
Yeah, much love.
Mayo.